It's all about you.
All about you. I love it. Let me buy you.
The only thing
I'll
we,
vote with you. Whatever you want me to vote.
well,
God.
I don't know.
Where the big guy chair? Where the little guy chair? Thank you.
Okay, we're a little late getting started, so we're going to go ahead and if you would, could I have your attention? Thank you. Chairman Brooks Coleman, would you lead us in prayer? Get this place started. Oh, yeah, you're there.
Hello. Let's pray, please. Most gracious Heavenly Father, we come to you today just so grateful, dear God, first of all, to live in this great country that we have, and especially in this great state, Georgia. We're so thankful that we have the opportunity as members of the legislature to serve and work for the people. And we ask you to be with us today as we deliberate, we think, we talk, and we try to make the right decisions for the people of this great state. Please give us the strength, the courage, and the wisdom to do what's right. These things we ask in the name of thy Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. We have had one change. House Bill 119 is asked to be removed, so we will not be hearing that today. And I'm going to call for the first bill, which is House Bill 418. Is Tommy, if you would? Yes, sir. When you're ready, start, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Bring to you today the substitute for House Bill 418. And what we have here is a bill that will deal with teacher retirement. And we have quite a few teachers that go overseas and teach for several years in American schools over there. And they come back and they've lost those 2 years toward their retirement. And so what the bill is proposing to do is that they have to be a member of the retirement system and before they do this, and then they can go overseas and they can teach for however long they want to, but we're only going to allow them to recoup 2 years of credible service toward their retirement. Now, what we have done is we have said that anything after the bill passes and is signed, they have 10 years to do that, to take care of those 2 years that they want to buy back. Before that time, we're not putting a time limit on that. Most of those people are getting fairly close to retirement now that have done this, and so we don't have a requirement on those that have done it before now, but those that do it after the bill is passed and signed will have 10 years. They can buy back 2 years. They must pay the full actuarial cost of the 2 years, and so therefore the cost of the system would be minimal at most, mainly for administration purposes and so forth. Mr. Chairman, that's the bill. I'd be glad to try to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, do we have any questions of the committee? All right, we have, let me see who's number 5, Buckner, Representative Buckner.
I'm just curious, if they went over for an international teaching service and they knew that they were going to do it for 2 or 3 years and that they were going to come back and finish up their career here, is there any provision provided where they could just keep paying their portion or either pay in their portion and the employers while they were gone, and then they wouldn't have to do the back pay?
Well, then that would entail having whoever their employee is overseas to withhold those funds and pay them in. We haven't put anything in there.
I knew it wasn't in this bill. I was just curious if there was any mechanism where that could be done.
I guess that could be up to teacher retirement if they wanted to do that.
Just a thought.
All right, do we have anyone on the committee have another question? Anyone from TRS, do you have any comments?
Tracy Lawson has signed up, or you signed up to speak? Hmm? Oh, I'm sorry, you had down there, I'm sorry, I looked at the wrong number, excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, appropriate time, I'll make a motion.
Okay, we're working, excuse me, let me get to this. We are working off LC 430770S.
That's correct.
All right, no comments? All right, do I hear a motion? You have a motion second. All in favor, let me know by saying aye. Any opposition, like sign? All right, the motion's carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
Penny.
you. All right, we have a hearing on a hearing only for House Bill 706. Chairman Taylor, would you come and share with us? And I believe we have some people that have signed up that want to speak to this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I appreciate the opportunity to bring you this important issue today. You have before you House Bill 706, number LC 430746. This bill addresses a shortcoming in the administration and the retirement death benefit for some of our retired state employees. For background, I offer the following information. Participation in this program has ended. No new enrollees or retirees can participate in it. The program provides the program provides a death benefit, not an insurance policy, for some of our retired employees. The funds are held in a trust by the state, again, not an insurance policy. That in itself is another issue that should be reviewed actuarially for its sustainability. But it is and was funded by both employee and state contributions. One of the rules of the program, according to the Georgia Code Title 47-2-332, is that benefits are not assignable. That includes not only retirement income, but also includes the proceeds from the death benefits. Death benefits cannot be assigned or made payable to another person other than the beneficiary, such as a funeral home, as an actual insurance policy does allow assignments for funeral homes. I understand the retirement or living expenses not being assigned, but the ability to provide for final burial expenses should be allowed under a death benefit. What we have found is that funeral homes are not being paid for their services. The beneficiaries are signing the proper paperwork, and funerals are being provided, and the money is not being paid. It is sent to a beneficiary, and they are not coming back and paying for the funeral services. This has been going on for a while, but the numbers has increased greatly over the last several years, and it's become a large problem. It has reached a point where some funeral homes can no longer and will no longer accept our state retirees for services. This bill is not to solve the collection issue of funeral homes, but it is to let our former employees have the dignity in their final hereafter. There are some folks here that wanted to talk to it. Can I call them up at this time?
I'll recognize them in just a second.
Representative Williams was going to be one to speak.
All right, I was going to see, I don't know whether or not he has another meeting. I was going to take him first. Representative Rick Williams. Last man let you down.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Also have a letter from the Department of Audits and Accounts that relating to this, if you would like me to leave it with the committee. This bill that Representative Chairlady Taylor has introduced does not make anyone sign away anything. This is merely a convenience that the state has not afforded their retirees. When people and families come into a funeral home to make arrangements, normally they walk in with their life insurance policies. And they're making arrangements and they say, this is going to pay for mother's funeral. When you retire from the state of Georgia, you don't have a policy. These people, these families come in and they're sitting there, they're already distraught, they've lost their family member. And they're saying, we don't know what to do. Mama retired from the state, Daddy retired from the prison system, state highway. The teacher, she was a retired teacher. I know she has life insurance. She told me for years and years, the state's going to pay for my funeral. I have insurance through the state, but I don't have any paperwork. Through my 40 years of being in business, we've developed a relationship with Employees Retirement System and Georgia Teachers Retirement. We've actually created a form that we fax to them, giving the deceased name, social security number, date of birth, date of death, next of kin. They appreciate that because the papers that were filled out when this employee started 40 plus years ago had 103 Main Street or Route 6, Box 20. There's no Route 6, Box 20. But these people, these families, do not know how to contact ERS or Teachers Retirement. And so that's part of our job, is taking care of our community and taking care of people. This bill, and I spoke with Director Povin and walked him through this procedure. This does not affect pensions, retirements. This is only after that state employee has passed away. So we notify the state, and by us doing that, that stops someone from erroneously collecting retirement for months, years. It notifies the state, so we have been a good neighbor to the state and notifying them so that they can cut off that. The same for Social Security. We notify them because every once in a while you will read in the news media where someone has collected Social Security on their deceased mother for 25 years. She's now 147 years old and nobody caught that. So this is merely a convenience. And this is what we do. We're the last ones at a very fragile time in people's lives. And they walk in, and again, I say, they're distraught. They don't know where to turn. A lot of times, as mobile as our society has become, the children live everywhere but Milledgeville, Georgia. They live in California, Washington State, Hawaii. They would like to take care of the business while they're in town. They don't, and they can't now under existing circumstances because that paperwork does not come out for about 8 weeks. And then the state of Georgia is going to mail it to that beneficiary that we told them about. But it may take about 8 weeks for that paperwork to come out. And so these people have gone back to Hawaii, Washington State, California, wherever. They've gone back trying to get on with their lives. And they don't know how to fill those papers out. We do. We assist them. But this only allows them, while they're in town, to take care of their loved one's funeral, to let the funeral home, funeral director, go ahead and take care of all the paperwork that's necessary. Again, thanks to the state of Georgia for the benefits they have given their retired employees. But there again, this is something that we've needed, and it's needed to be corrected for a number of years, and we're just trying to help other people and trying to help the families of the deceased. Not so much the funeral homes as much as the families. I thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll answer any question, but I know there's another funeral director here that would also like to speak, but I'll answer any question if anyone has any.
Okay, if we could hear from Mr. Jenkins to, right now, there may be questions that might concern both of you. If you'll just stay up here. just introduce yourself and share with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Andre Jenkins, funeral director and embalmer. I also practice in Milledgeville, Georgia, and I represent the Georgia Funeral Service Practitioners Association as well as the vice president. And of course, Mr. Williams has done an outstanding job of describing, of course, what the protocol has been in reference to how we collect. And of course, the assignment is very key in how we proceed forward with planning a funeral, what have you. And I'll just more or less give you testimonials of families. And I do understand the importance of the privacy and not giving information over the phone. I understand that, but by the same token, it's very important that as we move forward in the business aspect of providing a service, that we can solidify the services that a family has selected can be paid for. And of course, as we know, of course, cemeteries and what have you. Example, dad has been buried 5 years in a perpetual care cemeteries, and whereas mom has that opportunity as well, but she was a state of Georgia employee, and the children may not have the resources that, of course, would afford them that opportunity. And too often, we have to result in cemeteries that may be a lot less expensive simply because we cannot verify the methods of payment and cannot solidify how we in turn will get paid. So this is a very, and again, I practice in Milledgeville, Georgia, and there's a lot of, it's filtrated with state employees who were formerly employed with the Central State Hospital. And I own the leading African-American firm there in Milledgeville, and at least 80% of the clients that I serve are all state of Georgia employees. And it is a major risk that I take. Of course, I have been afforded the opportunity to have a cash flow and to have that rapport with some families. But again, as the times are changing, and we all know, we just simply cannot afford to take that risk. And in that stead, it allows us to not have that opportunity and in fact create a situation at mom or dad's death that really puts a family through stress that is, in our method of practicing, absolutely unnecessary, when there's simply a way that it can be fixed. And so again, Mr. Williams has answered, of course, stated most of the things that I was going to state as relate to how it is actually not it's not as though we're not trying to fix our cash flow issues, but this is simply a stressful time for a family, and for them having no knowledge at all for the next 6 to 8 weeks about what is available and how they can pay a bill, it's just, it's unacceptable. And of course, because we can't verify who in fact is the person to sit down and to literally make contract with. In some cases, you're left with a person who makes the wrong choice, and that responsibility is left with the son or daughter who, in essence, should have done the right thing, and mom or dad trusted him, and in essence doesn't. So thank you for hearing us, and I'll also answer questions.
All right, if you'll remain there, we have one of our committee members, I think maybe in the same business you're in, and Representative Bentley.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to share my support to House Bill 706 and thank Mr. Jenkins for being here and testifying, and thank Chairman Taylor and Representative Williams for your work on this legislation. I'm sorry I was a little tardy for being in Ways and Means, so I'm sure I can just agree to everything they've already said. I know this is only a hearing today, but I'll certainly be very fortunate and happy when we get to a point this could be a hearing with the vote, because this is certainly needed down in my part of the state. And whatever we can do to really move this legislation along, I am certainly in favor of it, because it is certainly needed. As Mr. Jenkins mentioned, there are times that we may run across someone in the family that may decide to do something different from what their family members have wanted them to do. So with these benefits, and this will certainly help ensure that all the proper arrangements are taken care of on the individual's behalf. And we're not trying to maintain or do anything outside of the normal for our business, but we are in business and we want to maintain our business, and we do need to ensure that we get paid for our services, and being able to submit an assignment to an insurance company will certainly help ensure that we get our funding. So I just wanted to add those words to what all that's been said thus far. And thank you again, Chairman Taylor, for your work on this, and I look forward to when we can actually vote on this legislation, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right.
I have a couple closing, if that's okay.
Wait a minute, we've got some questions.
Okay.
Chairman Maxwell.
Eyes are not right. My eye. Okay, thank y'all for bringing this, and I've got a question. It concerns me on a couple of places here that we've got the rights to a pension, annuity, retirement allowance, or return on contributions. We mentioned that in a lot of different places. But if we're only looking for the life insurance, the group term life insurance, why don't we specify what we're looking for there? That bothers me because it appears this is opening it up to everything, which we definitely don't want.
That was my thought exactly, but as I got into this, it is not an insurance policy. It's a bucket of money that the pension department has that they use to pay out death benefits. It's not an insurance policy where we can just do an assign.
It's called an optional benefit, or it's in some form. It's in a separate bucket. We don't need to be opening this up for everything.
Right, and that's what this is saying. We only want it for just
No, that's not what this is saying. This says retirement benefits and anything can be assigned. Once we start opening that up, we can have, it's going to open up a whole can of worms the way this is worded.
Well, I'll be happy to get with Legislative Council. That was our intention, to have it be just for the death benefit.
This is not what this says. The way I read it, it's everything, and that's very, very concerning to me.
Okay.
Another question. On line 29, upon the request by funeral director of the retirement system shall furnish information related to beneficiaries of a deceased individual, including the amounts due to each beneficiary. Is that not getting into some privacy issues there that we shouldn't probably, I don't think y'all can ask for, who's getting every dollar. I think that's a little over the top there.
We are open to work with Ledge Council and get it, whoever wants to name a price first, just to make sure that there's enough to cover the expenses.
Well,
I
don't know if they could even answer who the beneficiary is on that with y'all. I'm not sure they could even give you that information. I'm just not sure there, but.
In insurance policies, but not in this instance.
I understand this is not a policy, you're right. But these two issues give me real heartburn, and I would never be able to vote for a bill that's as broad as what this says.
Okay, we will get with Ledge Council and get some better wording on that.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. Representative Buckner. Representative Buckner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At some point during the conversation, it was talked about that there was not life insurance for state employees, and I remember when I worked there was, and so, and I don't know about teachers. I did that for a while, but I don't know if they have it, or the public school employees retirement system. So I got confused. Are we talking about a retired person using their funds for this, or are we talking about a person that's working using their retirement funds for this? Do you understand the difference in what
I see where you're going, and someone from retirement department could probably clarify it better, but my understanding is there's only a certain group. They no longer participate. This is not an option anymore for new employees, and you can't get into it anymore.
That's because the whole retirement plan is different.
It's changed, so that is not even allowable anymore. So at this point in time, I'm really not sure how to explain it any better than that. It was never a policy. You have as an employee, you have a life insurance policy you can buy. This is a separate for retirees.
Right.
It only applies to them. If something happened to an active employee, this is not necessarily what we're talking about.
So this would only apply to retirees?
It's a retiree, that's correct.
Are you, you were asking me a question about, are you talking about ERS, TRS, or
this
just in general?
This covers all the retirement systems.
I understand.
So I guess if they're different, we need to know how they handle this. I need to know how they handle this now.
Here is one of the things that needs to happen. There needs to be other discussions about this, because this is a hearing only. And it'd be very difficult for us to work out all the things that needs to be addressed, I believe, in this committee meeting. But since the question came up, if one of the, if ERS wants to speak to this, just as to address it, I think it would probably speak to all the plans.
That was your question?
Jim, thank you so much.
He looks like we owe him.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have several comments. Number one, I would disagree with the assertion that this is not a life insurance policy. It is a life insurance policy. For its entire existence, it's been called the Group Term Life Insurance Policy under the Georgia ERS. It is not funded or administered in the same way as a private life insurance policy, but does not make it anything other than a life insurance policy. So that's the first point that I would make. Second point that I would make to the scope of the bill, the only entity in the state that has this kind of a insurance policy is the ERS. And the first red flag should be that this bill specifically talks about both the teachers and public school retirement systems. There's no way that those systems could be involved unless we were talking about other types of death benefits that are available through those plans. So the scope of this is far beyond that which I believe the intent was according to the words of the representatives who have spoken to it. Number three, lines 29 to 31 are a very fundamental issue for us. We have strict enjoinders within Title 47 against giving out any personal, private, or financial information about any of our retirees or payees. Some member information is available, but not through the ERS. It's available because it's available through the department, the open.georgia.gov. Open.georgia.gov does not apply to retirees of ERS, so the idea of us providing any type of beneficiary or payment information to any kind of a third party would be fundamentally against the privacy rules that we've operated under for our entire existence. Finally, I view this bill in general, the idea, while I am sympathetic to the issues that are being brought forth by the industry members that are here, I worry that this bill is a gateway bill. There are many creditors that are out there that would look for payment and knowing that there is a stream of income or a potential income source from the retirement system. I don't know how I would draw a line between the industry that's being brought before us today and any other type of creditor. And I certainly would not want to get into a point where we are opening up assignment of benefits to any creditor that comes through. Right now, there are only a couple of very, very specific cases where benefits assignability is even possible for us. One is Chapter 13 bankruptcy, one is an IRS federal tax issue, and one is child support. That's it. We don't even do divorces, the divorce alimony type payments. That is different also from the private sector, but it is a principle that's been in place with the retirement system as far as I know since it was created. And I would be hesitant to open that door to a wider array.
Thank you. If you'll just remain there for just a second, I have several lights on here. And first of all, Chairman Meadows.
Can you hear me on this thing?
No,
I
you
can.
can't hear it on that one. It's not working.
Hello?
Well, I know it,
How
but I
about
could,
16? Can you hear me? 16?
well, we'll try.
I don't know.
How,
How about now?
well,
Oh, you can hear me. I just
now,
talk
okay.
loud.
All right.
Just general questions, and again to the author. It's my understanding that this plan is no longer offered, that we offered this plan years ago to employees, not just regular ERS employees, and that it was funded by donations from the employee and the state. Anybody says no, tell me. I won't know if I'm wrong. And those funds were not commingled with the retirement funds that we have set up there, whatever the thing was, the defined benefit, whatever we got going. They were not commingled, they were set aside. And it was a death benefit. Correct? If somebody says no, let me know. It was a death benefit. Y'all, I don't want to tell you nothing, but I've been selling life insurance for 40-something years. If it walks like a duck, if it talks like a duck, it's a duck. This is life insurance, and that's the only thing that should be discussed in this bill. And you can assign life insurance policies. These people that are still around ought to be able to assign their life insurance, not their retirement benefits and not their annuities. They should not be, and in my opinion, cannot be assigned. And again, you tell me if I'm getting out of hand.
So I will agree in the sense that in the private sector, life insurance policies are clearly assignable. This is an insurance program or a benefit that is provided through Title 47, which contains specific language that prevents assignability of benefits that are created under the chapter.
And I think the author's intent is for us to change that
Well,
so that they can.
I understand
And
that.
since there's nobody else participating in it, if we get it, narrow it down to that group of people, and that brings me around to Section 2. Section 2 should just be struck from the bill. That's teacher retirement, which has nothing to do with this.
I'll just make one other comment and I'll yield. There is a way at this point for a retired member to accomplish what they are asking for, and that is simply to designate the funeral home as a beneficiary. The retiree can already do that. Now, that requires a little bit of planning, I grant you, but that is a possibility right now.
Well, let's, so that I won't get those people into a position of having to do that pre-planning on something that they don't want to think about anyway. I hadn't found anybody that want to talk about dying except these 3 people that have spoken on the bill. Oh, I'm sorry, y'all putting them down, aren't you? But there is nothing in this world wrong. And again, we've got a pot of money that's not commingled with any other funds that is there to be the payout for those people that chose to have this policy years ago. There is no reason in this world that this bill shouldn't be able to be changed or change that law that's inside under Title 47 and assign those benefits. I don't want to get past assignments, but you ought to be able to assign life insurance to who you want to. And I do it on hundreds and hundreds of policies. So I know it's an accepted way of doing business. These 3 people and all other people in the funeral business deserve to get paid for the services they provide. And if the deceased, it has been their request that they get paid, I don't want my heirs to have to worry about it. I've already said earlier, I said put me in the ground for $10,000, not a penny more. But I would assign my $10,000 of whatever the amount of the policy is. I don't know how much these death benefits are. I think each individual probably bought the amount they thought they needed. But they funded, we funded, we no longer do it. We have a pot of money to pay them out. Change the bill, take all this other stuff out and put it to ERS, make it life insurance assignable to whoever. Because whoever needs paid. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Meadows, I'd like to address that because I had been informed that this was not insurance, that it is a trust. And this was originally assigned to be going to insurance. That was our goal because it was an insurance product. And I ended up in retirement. So I'm with you. And I don't want to be the person that has to design a form for retirees to say, pick your funeral. No, I just don't, I can't even imagine that. At the time of retirement, to have somebody pick out their funeral home, that just doesn't get it. So.
I know that in my 73 years, I've made mistakes a long time ago that's probably going to haunt me somewhere else. But you don't have to call it insurance for me to know that it's insurance. Plain and simple.
You're exactly right. I felt the same way. So that is something. I do feel like all of the benefits don't need to be assigned. I do think I'm looking and talking about just the death benefits to be assigned for burial expenses. I know nobody likes change, but this is something that does need to be directed and looked at. In closing, I just feel like that we need to face this. This is a reason that we need to. Final expenses for our employees. They deserve the dignity of not being left owing. And they're gone, I get that, but it still isn't right. I ask that the department and the committee realize that the world has changed. We need to address this and take future action. I know we're not taking action today, and I'll be happy to work with anybody to get it zeroed in, exactly what would be acceptable. But again, it is something that needs to be addressed. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And Representative Bentley?
The mic on?
It is.
Thank you, Chairman Meadows, for your remarks, and I just want to echo a little bit what you said, just for a better understanding for maybe my colleagues and people in the audience. This is what I know at Bentley Mumford Mortuary. If a family come into that mortuary with a policy for a life insurance policy for $10,000, I'm just using that as an example, and the funeral is $5,000, American General will take and accept an assignment from the mortuary for $5,000, and when that insurance company is ready to finalize that claim, pay out that claim, they will send a check for $5,000 to the mortuary from the information based on the assignment, and the other $5,000 will go to the beneficiary from the beneficiary completing that claim form. And we send all of that in along with the death certificate, the claim form, the assignment, and the death certificate to American General. And when they finalize those claims, they send 5 to the funeral home and 5 to the beneficiary. I, along with Representative Williams, just want to make sure that we work hard to serve families across this state. We want to make sure we get paid. Call it whatever you want to call it, life insurance, whatever, but that's how it's done with private insurance companies, and that's the way I would like to see it done on a state level.
Any other questions? Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, Chairman Meadows, thank you very much for those words. Director Povin, I realize you can go on their website and you can go through paperwork and name a beneficiary. I was a licensed insurance agent back many years ago, and my son is now. And we sell insurance through our funeral home. But in Georgia, it is illegal to make a funeral home as a beneficiary on a life insurance policy. That's in insurance law now. You can't make a funeral home. They're afraid the funeral homes will go start killing people off, I guess. But you can't make a funeral home as a beneficiary.
May I make a suggestion?
Yes, sir.
Thank
you, sir.
My suggestion is that this piece of legislation, as it is, we could not vote on it, and we knew that to begin with. There's a number of issues that have come up here, and I would ask the author of the bill to get with Legislative Council as well as the insurance, ERS in particular, and to see if there is a way to meet somewhere in the middle and find a resolve of this. I would say that's the only way that you're going to come up with a bill that we can actually vote on. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
I'm not
See you
gonna
again.
go with this
Thank you very
retirement
much.
bill. We don't have time. But I'm gonna. There was one other bill, and it's House Bill 624. This is. I want the committee to hear this, please. I need the committee to hear this. 624 is the LRS retirement bill. My intentions were to go through this bill today, kind of from section 1 all the way through the end of it, and get a vote. But because we had to order a new actuarial, which is not back as of yet, we cannot vote on it today. Therefore, because time is short, many of us have to be in another committee meeting in 10 minutes. I am not going to try to go through it today. Next week, next Wednesday, it's the only thing on the agenda. we're going to talk about this, we're going to deal with this, and we're going to be voting on it. We need to get this into rules and onto the floor. We want to make sure this crosses over as clean as possible for the Senate to vote on. So thank you for being here today, and we will take up 624 next week. Does that sound right? No, he's pulling it. He said he came and told me, he said, we're not going to do it. He said, I don't think we're done. We adjourned. Well, out of all this.